Hello everybody. Today's lesson from Zeitgeist is Refugee Blues by W.H. Auden. A little bit about W.H. Auden. He was born in 1907 in York. He was the son of a doctor and his mother was a missionary nurse. He was raised in the West Midlands of northern England. And during the course of his graduation, he was influenced by the poetry of T.S. Eliot, one of the modern iconists of modern poetry. His first collection of poems, entitled Poems, inaugurated the movement of English verse known as the Auden generation. The other members in his group were Stephen Spender, Louis MacNeice and Cecil Day Lewis. In 1937, he married Erika Mann, daughter of a famous German novelist Thomas Mann, only to secure her a British passport and thereby save her from Hitler's Germany. Influenced by Marxist ideals, Auden was involved in the Spanish Civil War. However, his political commitment outside the world of his poems was challenged by critics like Edward Mendelssohn, who stated that he was often most divided when he appeared most committed. And abandoning politics, Auden left England and moved to the United States with his friend Christopher Isherwood. Auden became prolific in writing. He won the Pulitzer Prize for The Age of Anxiety in 1947, the National Book Award for The Shield of Achilles in 1955, despite having lived a bohemian life in New York with gay friends like Chester Kalman. And in 1958, he moved with Kalman to Austria, settled in a village near Vienna, taking up assignments like editing, translating and reviewing books. And in 1973, he died of a heart attack at a hotel in Vienna. W.H. Auden is buried in the Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey. Now, the greatness of Auden as a poet emerges because there are lots of poems that he has written. Most prominent among them is The Unknown Citizen. Now, in this poem, Refugee Blues, written in 1939, laments the sad plight of the Jews who were threatened to leave the country before the Holocaust to the modern democracies, and the indifference and antagonism they faced while seeking asylum there. So you see, they had to move from their own country primarily because they were being tormented and they were being hounded by Hitler. And this poem is considered one of the most significant responses in the context of the violation of the human rights of the Jews of Europe. And in this poem, the Jews of Europe are the migrants and the minorities and the persecuted. The Jews were actually brutally cornered, they were imprisoned, and many of them were killed under the rule of Hitler. Refugee Blues is written in 12 stanzas of 3 lines with the rhyme scheme AAB. The poem assumes global significance primarily because migration has emerged as a burning problem, with thousands of people dying at the sea and shown the door of exit from many countries. You can see, which is very evident in the boat, which has so many passengers, and because of that the boat is actually marooned, or it is stuck, and the authorities do not allow them to enter the country of choice. The speaker of this poem is a Jewish refugee, and he is addressing his lover about the abysmal plight of the refugees of the world. So he is very sad, and he is actually saying this poem, and this particular poem is written in the blues style. The blues is actually a sort of protest poem used by the American blacks, and the are Calypso, and the repetition of phrases can be seen in the last lines of each stanzas, and the insertion of "my dear" in between makes the poem really very touching, emotional, and powerful. So let's listen to the poem Refugee Blues by W.H. Auden. Say the city has 10 million souls. Some are living in mansions, some are living in holes. Yet there is no place for us, my dear. Yet there is no place for us. Once we had a country and we thought it fair. Look in the atlas and you'll find it there. We cannot go there now, my dear. We cannot go there now. In the village churchyard, there grows an old yew. Every spring it blossoms anew. All passports can't do that, my dear. All passports can't do that. The consul banged the table and said, "If you've got no passport, you're officially dead." But we are still alive, my dear. But we are still alive. Went to a committee. They offered me a chair. Asked me politely to return next year. But where shall we go today, my dear? Where shall we go today? Came to a public meeting. The speaker got up and said, "If we let them in, they will steal our daily bread." He was talking of you and me, my dear. He was talking of you and me. Thought I heard the thunder rumbling in the sky. It was Hitler over Europe saying, "They must die." Oh, we were in his mind, my dear. Oh, we were in his mind. Saw a poodle in a jacket fastened with a pin. Saw a door opened and a cat let in. But they were in German Jews, my dear. But they were in German Jews. Went down the harbor and stood upon the quay. Saw the fish swimming as if they were free. Only 10 feet away, my dear. Only 10 feet away. Walked through a wood. Saw the birds in the trees. They had no politicians and sang at their ease. They were in the human race, my dear. They weren't the human race. Dreamed I saw a building with 1,000 floors, 1,000 windows and 1,000 doors. Not one of them was ours, my dear. Not one of them was ours. Stood on a great plain in the falling snow. 10,000 soldiers marched to and fro, looking for you and me, my dear. Looking for you and me. So you can see the repetition of the last lines of each stanzas and the insertion of "my dear" in between, which makes the poem very touching and very emotional and also very powerful. So now let's have a look at the poem once again. The first line, say the city has 10 million souls. Some are living in mansions, some are living in holes. Yet there's no place for us, my dear. Yet there's no place for us. So this reference is to New York City, and it could also mean any other city in Europe or America which is reluctant to admit Jews. And this 10 million would be a hyperbole. Of course, now it's not a hyperbole. New York has more than 10 million. But it refers to the magnitude of ignorance. And souls would mean that it's a reminder of the anti-Semitic belief, which considered the Jews as people without souls. Once we had a country and we thought it fair. Look in the atlas, you will find it there. We cannot go there, my dear. We cannot go there now. Now we cannot go back because our houses are all, occupied by Germans and everything. So we have lost everything. We can never go back. In the village churchyard, there grows an old yew. Every spring it blossoms anew. Old passports can't do that, my dear. Old passports can't do that. So in the Sunday service, when we go to a churchyard, we find an old yew tree. This tree, every spring it blossoms and brings out a very, berry-like fruits. But passports can't do that. The passports that we have are no good. Although these yew trees are also linked with folklore and superstition, and it seems that the yew trees can live to a great age, but for us none of these things are possible. And so they go to the consul general banged the table and said, if you've got no passport, you're officially dead. So there is no entry into the country, and also if you don't have a passport, which means you are not alive, you are non-existent. But we are still alive, my dear, we are still alive. So this is the plight of the refugees. They live in a what you call as no man's land. And at this point, I think you must see a movie by Tom Hanks. I'll put it in the description box below. It's called The Terminal, wherein he is in the terminal of an airport waiting to go to his home country, and at that point of time he finds that his country has been invaded by military, and that his passport is no longer valid. So he spends his life in the airport. It's called The Terminal by Tom Hanks, and I think you must definitely see it. Went to a committee, they offered me a chair, asked me politely to return next year. But where shall we go today, my dear? Where shall we go today? So they go from pillar to post. They go to a committee office. The office is decent enough to give them a chair. But then, after talking to them, they politely and very comfortably tell them, I'm sorry, we are not able to admit you in the country because one, you don't have a passport, and two, our immigration policies don't allow refugees to come into the country, and officially you have been denied entry. You cannot enter our country. But where shall we go today, my dear? Where shall we go today? But so they have to stay in the streets. They will not get a decent housing or anything like that. Came to a public meeting. The speaker got up and said, if we let them in, they will steal our daily bread. So there's a public meeting going on, and if when they come in, the refugees come into the room, everyone is hushing and talking and saying, if we let them in, they will steal our daily bread. They will even take away our food. They will come and occupy the country. He was talking of you and me, my dear. He was talking of you and me. So you see, behind their backs, everyone talks, and no one really wants them to come into their land. Thought I heard the thunder rumbling in the sky. It was Hitler over Europe saying, they must die. Oh, we were in his mind, my dear. Oh, we were in his mind. So Hitler was dead against the Jews, and it was his job to exterminate the Jews, find them wherever it was, and exterminate them, kill them. You must also have read the diary of Anne Frank. If you have not done, you must do that, because it shows the atrocities of Hitler against the Jews. Saw a poodle in a jacket fastened with a pin. Saw a door opened and a cat let in. But they were in German Jews, my dear. But they were in German Jews. So you see, in this country, you can see even a poodle. A poodle is supposed to be a rare dog, an expensive dog, and that is, given a jacket and a coat, and it is decorated with fancy wear. A cat is allowed inside the house, but both of them, because they are German, they are not German Jews, they were given permission to stay in the country. But because we are German Jews, we aren't allowed anywhere. So you see, saw a poodle in a jacket fastened with a pin, saw a door opened and a cat let in. But they were in German Jews, my dear, but they were in German Jews. So they were allowed into the house because they weren't German Jews. And if they were German Jews, they would not be allowed into the houses. Went to the harbor and stood upon the quay, saw the fish swimming as if they were free. Only 10 feet away, my dear, only 10 feet away. So they go to the harbor, and they stand there and look down into the waters, and they find the fishes swimming as free as possible. For them, the life is so free. But what about us German Jews? We are not free at all. Went down to the harbor and stood upon the quay, saw the fish swimming as if they were free. Only 10 feet away, my dear, only 10 feet away. Walked through a wood, saw the birds in the trees. They had no politicians and sang at their ease. They were in the human race, my dear. They were in the human race. So then they walk towards the woodside, and when they look up, they find birds in the trees, singing gloriously. They are so happy. They are chirping aloud. Why? Because they were not politicians, and they could, speak out, and they could sing at the full throttle of their voice, because also they were in the human race. If they were human race, they wouldn't be able to do this. If they were humans, they would be suppressed. If they were Jews, it'll be even worse. Dreamed I saw a building with 1,000 floors, 1,000 windows, and 1,000 doors. Not one of them was ours, my dear. Not one of them was ours. So they look up and find huge, tall buildings with lots of floors, lots of windows, but not a single one was theirs, because they could not take possession, they could not buy a house, they could not stay in, they could not give rent, because they were all aliens. They were not really citizens of that particular country. Stood on a great plain in the falling snow, 10,000 soldiers marched to and fro, looking for you and me, my dear, looking for you and me. So the soldiers are now walking up and down, searching for us, trying to find us. And when they find us, they will either lock us, put us in jail, or they might put us back on the ships and send us back to our own countries. But which country do we have? But whatever it is, they are now searching for us. So what should we do? Nothing but the endless snow. What we can do is hide from all of them. So in this snow, the image of coldness and death, 10,000 soldiers would be a hyperbole to heighten the process of hunting. So they, as refugees, have to keep hiding from the law, and try to make a living by escaping from the law. So this is the poem by W.H. Auden, Refugee Blues, wherein the repetition of the phrases of the last lines of each stanzas and the insertion of my dear in between makes the poem very touching, emotional, and powerful. Thank you very much.